Okay, what we're working on today is a Lennox Pulse. This one is a G14, 100,000 BTU, and it's from 1983. Okay, Lennox had problems with these furnaces, and they needed to be checked. At one time, I think it was every 3 years, and then it went to once every year, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. But what we actually have to do is we actually have to pressurize the heat exchanger to make sure it's safe for operation, so there's no chance of putting carbon monoxide into the house. So that's what we're here today to do, and how we're going to do the test is we're going to plug 3 spots in this heat exchanger. We're going to plug the air intake behind here. We're going to plug the gas. We're going to take this off, put a plug in here for the gas, and then we're going to plug the exhaust. So let me get this thing apart, and we'll get everything where it has to go, all the plugs, and then I'll show you how to go about doing the test. Alright, as you can see, we got this thing half apart. I got the gas out, I got the exhaust off. Right now I'm in the process of taking the what we call the flapper out. There comes the flapper. It definitely needs to be cleaned, but that's where we're going to put our plug. So we have this big metal door right here, and when you take this off, this thing weighs about 5 pounds. Make sure you got a hand on it, or it's going to hurt someone. So let me get my plugs in, and we'll pressurize it. Okay, as you can see, I got a plug there. I'm plugged here with a pressure gauge, and I'm plugged down there. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw a little pressure in it, no more than 5 psi, and then we'll do a leak check. Won't even hold pressure. Yeah, this, usually I can pump it up. I can get it pumped up to right around 5 psi. As you can see, I put some leak check on there. I'm not leaking out any of my joints. This thing will not pressurize. It is absolutely, there's a hole in the heat exchanger, or something is separated from the heat exchanger, not allowing it to hold pressure at all. And so this is, you know, if this was to work, and how the pressure test is supposed to work is if you get it up to 5 psi, I think it's within 5 minutes. If it drops to, I think, any heat exchanger is allowed to leak somewhat, but if it falls out of the parameter of, I think, 4 psi within 10 minutes, it leaks too much and it's a dangerous appliance, could possibly put carbon monoxide in the house. But with this furnace, I cannot get any pressure in it at all, so I know that heat exchanger is compromised. There is something somewhere where there's an actual hole in that heat exchanger, not allowing it to hold pressure. So I'm going to tag this furnace stating it's dangerous to operate, and I think we're replacing the whole system. Come up here in Thursday or Friday, you know, a few more days. But this is how you do a Lennox pulse pressure test. Should be done on these older models. I think it should be done once a year, just due to the fact is could be a very potentially dangerous furnace with a positive pressure heat exchanger. Positive pressure, I mean, instead of having an induced draft motor on the exhaust, this one's on the supply. So here's your intake air from outside, goes into the fan, pressurizes the heat exchanger. So now, if I'm pressurizing the heat exchanger, any products of combustion, if there is a hole, can actually be pushed out into the airstream. So that's why it makes it potentially dangerous. So, like I said, this is a Lennox pulse pressure test, and we're going to condemn this one. Hope this helped someone. You know, like I said, you know, these things should be done probably once a year, once every 3 years. Depends on the condition of the furnace, but you never know. You know, it's hard to tell with these furnaces. You know, even checking with a camera is, you know, it's really hard to find cracks and compromises in this heat exchanger, so that's why we do a pressure test on it. Alright, this one's done. Alright, here's the manual for that Lennox test pulse, or Lennox pulse test kit. It's a heat exchanger and vent pipe test kit. As you see down here, I couldn't remember exactly how long the test was, I think, and how many PSI you lost over so many minutes. But, you know, test plugs are only rated for 5 PSI, so don't try to, you know, pump it up 20 PSI and expect it to work, because you'll lose all the pressure. Like I said, they're only rated for 5 PSI. It says right here, pressurize unit to 4 PSI and observe the rate of loss. Leak rate of 4 PSI over 10 minutes or longer on all models of pulse furnaces. So if I leak over 4 PSI in 10 minutes, that heat exchanger is bad. Usually I pump it up to 5 PSI, and I'd say about 85% of these furnaces do not pass this test. So it's a good tool, you know, for safety. You know, you got to make sure your customer's safe. But I just wanted to kind of make it clear how the test actually worked, because I couldn't remember offhand. I only do maybe a handful of these a year, so trying to remember all these tests, and you know, is virtually impossible. So that's why we keep you know, all the paperwork with our test kits. But like I said, 4 PSI in 10 minutes. If it loses 4 PSI in 10 minutes, it's bad. So that's it for this one. I just kind of wanted to go back and, you know, give you the exact test time and PSI. Thanks.